This is WABE's Week in Review. I'm Alex Hummock, managing editor of WABE News. And on the show, we take a look back at stories from your WABE News team from the last few days. Later in the show, a WABE legend retires, and we explore more D.C. decisions impacting Georgia. But first, to the state capitol, where on Thursday, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp signed an amended 2025 state budget that adds billions of dollars to the current funding for state government. WABE's Raul Bali had more on two major items in the $40.5 billion budget.
One of the big focuses is on storm recovery, especially in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, including millions for local governments and farmers, along with $25 million for nonprofits to help affected homeowners. Rosalind Merrick with Atlanta Habitat for Humanity says she expects their affiliates to get involved.
Habitats, you will find, are some of the fastest, most cost-effective, and energy-efficient sustainable builders in our state. So we can get it done at a level of quality and efficiency that others can't.
Kemp highlighted the use of $1 billion surplus dollars for one-time tax rebates of $250 for single filers and $500 for joint filers. Here's the governor during the signing ceremony Thursday.
I want to remind the legislature, y'all do need to pass that today to get it to cross over. I feel certain that you'll be able to help us with that.
The House did pass the enabling legislation for rebates. It still has to pass the Senate. Raul Bali, WABE News, the state capitol.
Thursday, of course, was crossover day at the Capitol, where some bills pass through and others die, well, at least for the most part. Let's look at some of the action. The State House passed a bill to reduce Georgia's income tax rate by 0.1%. House Bill 111 would make the state income tax 5.19% starting next year. Republican Representative Sue Hong is the lead sponsor.
We have a surplus budget, and we are able to put money back into our taxpayers.
Several Democrats spoke against the bill, saying the tax cut will mostly benefit the wealthy. State Representative Gabrielle Sanchez said the median family will only gain $70 a year.
Instead of fixing this huge disparity, we are giving a massive, wasteful tax cut to the wealthiest Georgians and not investing in programs that serve everyone in this state.
The bill now heads to the state Senate. Let's look at some of the bills that garnered a lot of attention but failed to move, like the one that would have slashed state funding for public schools and universities with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. WABE's Mei Shu had that story.
SB 120 would have mirrored recent Trump administration efforts to strip federal funding from institutions with policies that consider race in admissions, hiring, scholarships, and other academic areas. The Senate did not vote on the bill on crossover day, but its lead sponsor, Republican State Senator Marty Harbin, hinted that the bill's provisions could come back this session or next year.
We got down tonight, we were going to the last, and we had our last proofing of a reading, and we said there's some things we need to make right. This is a biennial. We'd rather do it right than do it halfway.
State Senator Nikki Merritt was part of the Democratic opposition to the bill.
This is what happens when people, I think, stay engaged and involved and start calling and putting pressure that we don't want this legislation. And I do believe that was a factor in them not calling up the bill.
Though Senate didn't vote on the bill, Harbin says he would have had enough support to pass it. Mei Shu, WABE News, the state capitol.
And here's Melissa Fado with a few more bills that failed.
HB 215 would have pulled Georgia out of the Electronic Registration Information Center, a nonprofit that shares data to keep voter rolls updated. Several Republican states have already voted to exit the group. HB 237 would have created a formal process to decide if examples of artistic expression, like song lyrics, are admissible in court. And HR 174 would have changed the state school superintendent from an elected to an appointed role. Just because a bill or a resolution didn't pass out of the House yesterday doesn't mean it's done for good. It could merge with other legislation, sometimes known as a zombie bill, or lawmakers could try again next year. Melissa Fato, WABE News, the state capitol.
For more on what passed through the Senate and House and what didn't, go to wabe.org/2025 bill tracker. Let's go federal now. and all the DC action impacting Georgia. Many who work in the public health sector here are reeling as the Trump administration continues slashing federal agencies and programs. Some fired CDC employees are now being told they can return to work, at least for now. But Atlanta researchers say they're worried about the future of CDC's workforce and public health research capacity. WABE's Jess Mador reported the story.
It was mid-January when the email came. After a roughly 6-month hiring process and extensive background checks, an official offer of employment at the CDC.
For years, I'd been hoping to get a position like this one on a team like this one, doing that kind of work. And what the job represented was growth and stability.
This Georgia researcher requested anonymity because he's not authorized to speak publicly about his job application. The job would have involved studying the effectiveness of global health programs. He told his wife the good news, but it didn't last long.
Tuesday after inauguration, I received a letter letting me know the offer had been rescinded.
It's part of the president's federal hiring freeze. In addition to the ongoing firings of current federal employees, there's growing concern about losing the next generation of public health workers, like that Georgia researcher. Emory epidemiology professor Patrick Sullivan says he's also worried about disruptions to National Institutes of Health research funding.
And what I've been thinking about is, what the cost is going to be of the destabilization.
Sullivan is an HIV expert who previously worked at the CDC for about 15 years. He says Trump's planned cuts could undermine research.
We have in the HIV prevention community, the sense of optimism that we have all the tools we need to end the HIV epidemic in the United States.
But now he's concerned the Trump administration's public health cuts would slow that progress. Jess Mador, WABE News.
You're listening to WABE's Week in Review with me, Alex Hummock. Check out our YouTube page. We're now dropping WABE news shorts on the regular. Video snippets of the news you expect from your WABE news team with all the context and potential impact of what is going on in your backyard. WABE news shorts, just in time for the warm weather. Well, for the final part of the show today, I want to take a little time to honor a colleague. WABE host Lois Reitzes has brought you the classics and an incredible amount of arts and culture news and deep, thoughtful interviews for 45 years. This week, Lois announced she's retiring from WABE in June. Lois sat down with WABE's Jim Burris this week to talk about her decision.
Wow, 45 years is remarkable. What does it mean to you to think about touching all of the people that you have across those decades?
It's humbling. And it's uplifting, and in many ways it was thrilling. I think I'm so privileged that what I love most, I've been able to pursue professionally. And not only do I get to do that, but the idea of strangers thanking us for what we do. Jim, I know you get that too. And how many people can have that experience, going to work and having a stranger thank you for what you do?
It's an amazing feeling. I will say that my voice is probably not as distinctive as yours, though, and that you get it very frequently. What is your reaction in a situation like that?
Well, at first it was, oh my God, I had better be careful about what I say in public because the first time I think it ever happened, I was in the little Kroger near Emory in Emory Village, and I thought I was alone in the aisle, and I just said to myself, where do you suppose they keep the rice? And there was a woman at the end of the aisle, and she went, oh, you're Lois Reitzes. I said, from where do you suppose they keep the rice? She said, I know that voice anywhere. And that just floored me. But when you wake up with them, when you're helping them make dinner, Jim, you are a dinner companion, or at least a journalist sous chef to many people in Atlanta. There's an intimacy and a friendship that they feel with us, and it's extraordinary.
I have seen so much change at WABE in the 18 years I've been here. What's it been like when you look back to when you arrived?
I came to WABE the same time NPR launched Morning Edition. And when I started, I would get here at 5:30 in the morning, turn on the transmitter.
My goodness.
I programmed and hosted meetings 6 and 7 a.m. until the decision was made in 2014 for us to change formats from NPR News and Classical to News and Talk on the main channel. When the decision was made to change formats, I thought that was going to be the end of my tenure here. 35 years is a pretty good run, you know. Sure. I couldn't complain about that. And I remember a meeting with Milton Clipper and John Weatherford.
This is our former general manager, now passed.
Saying, we think arts and culture is news, and we think you should own it, which really did my heart good.
It was quite the lift and quite the change for you. Talk about that.
I mean, I loved everything I did in music. Suddenly I had filmmakers and visual artists and actors and comedians and dancers and poets and chefs coming through. And Jim, it was like a decade class in lifelong learning. You know, I have learned so much about so many subjects, and in the process have been able to shine a light on the breadth of the arts community in this city. There's a lot of creativity, and they need support. And we can connect people to those artists.
And you've done an amazing job. City Lights has been a go-to for me every day, and I've learned, I'd like to say, pretty much all I know about the Atlanta art scene by listening to Lois Reitzes. And that's one reason, there are many, but that's one reason why hearing that you're retiring is bittersweet, and I'm sure it is for you too. Talk about the decision.
Oh, sure. I had a nasty case of COVID. I got it right before Christmas 23. It was bad. And then the post-COVID symptoms lingered. I noticed that tasks were taking me longer. And a typical work week was about 60 hours. You know this. I mean,
it can be a lot, yeah.
This is what we do, right?
Sure.
It's a choice. But I was feeling the pace of what was necessary was taking more out of me than I thought reasonable. So that's when I started thinking about it. It has not been an easy decision, but there are a few things that are making it easier. City Lights will continue. Anytime I want to do any interview on any topic, I've got a green light.
I'd hope so.
So, and I will finish out the ASO season. On the plus side, I will be more available as a friend, a relative. I'll have a pace that I think will be more manageable.
You are unique And Jim, you've been a tireless advocate for arts and culture here your entire career. You are Atlanta.
Oh, Jim.
I think I express a lot of people's sadness that we're not going to hear you every day, but also what a great honor for me to be able to say thank you for all of those years, your commitment, your stamp on this city. We're all so fortunate that you chose to be here. Thank you, Lois.
Thank you, Jim.
That was WABE's Jim Burris with City Lights host Lois Reitzes, who announced this week that she is retiring from WABE after 45 years. Just a personal note here. When I first came to WABE in 2019, Lois was one of the nicest people to me. She welcomed me and made me feel at home straight away. For such an established, big name in this market to be so nice and welcoming was refreshing and highlights what a top-notch professional she is, but an even better person. Good luck, Lois. That's all for the show this week. I'm Alex Hummock. My thanks to the WABE News team for all the great work, and a big thanks to you for supporting WABE and for listening to the Week in Review.